Hi everybody! How are you today? Hope today finds you all well and happy. We had a little nip in the morning of chill with I had my sweater on, and now of course it's getting warm because it's California, but here we are. So I'm going to just launch into our class today and talk about, the first thing I wanted to address was the question about drape. Say when I think of the word drape, and I think when it's like one of the stringing wires had it on their label, they're talking about a metal, which we talked about last Thursday, about stringing wires actually little wires of steel. So, that's not very flexible, acting like a fiber. So the drape, when they're talking about drape, they're talking about this steel cable acting like a fiber would. So the thicker the filaments, when we're talking about 7 strand, we're talking about having pretty thick filaments of steel inside that sheath that I talked about. So compared to a 49 strand, in order to fit in the same size wire, those 49 strands are going to be a lot tinier, a lot smaller. So those thinner strands are going to act more like a fiber would. And most of the time you're not going to find a stringing wire that's going to act like silk or something like that. But that's the goal when we're talking about drape, is to have a wire that acts more like a fiber, that when you're wearing it has some movement and isn't just stiff and holding its shape. Especially when you're using lighter beads that don't weigh as much. When you're wearing something like my necklace right here has this heavy pendant on it, so even though I'm using 7 strands, I believed I probably used in this piece, the weight of the pendant pulls it down and kind of keeps it draping nicely. But sometimes when you're using stiffer wire, then it's going to hold its own shape. Sometimes you may want that for the design that you're making. So I hope that answers your question, Laura. I'm going to talk a little bit about patterning, because I know we have some people who are just starting out, and I do know that when you're starting to make jewelry, the patterning part is kind of hard. It's like you don't really know where to start, and that not knowing stops people. So I have a little kind of an exercise that you can play with. I printed it out, so I'm gonna put it on my work table, so when you rewatch the video or have the replay, you could freeze it or even take a screenshot of it. And I have it in one of my informational emails that I send out. So you may have, if you've gotten them, you may have gotten this email already. But it's a way of kind of taking the mind out of it and freeing you up to just start playing. And that's really what this is all about. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to start showing you a piece that I'll start making it using that experiment, that exercise, and I'll start making it, and I'm going to review adding a clasp, crimping, having my first bead go on, be able to cover up the wires like we started on last week, and then I'm going to show you just a variation this is what I call a continuous strand necklace. This doesn't have a clasp. I can put it over my head. I'm going to be making or demoing today using a clasp so that you could take it on and off. But generally, people think of stringing as just one, just a straight piece. So I'm going to show you how to do a little bead weaving technique to end up having a piece that looks like a pendant. So I love showing this, because when you're starting out with stringing, or even if you've done a lot of stringing before, this is just a nice variation that you can add to your pieces. So I want to show you that. So let's start talking about patterning. And I have 2 things. I have just a little overview in my Get Started Beading book that I'll share with you, and also I want to share with you the exercise. So I'm going to explain, and hopefully it's helpful. So I'm going to turn you around and just welcome everybody. I'm going to launch in. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to just bring this little piece in. Hopefully it all fits. And you can, I'll just go over it a little bit. And if you end up wanting to screenshot it later, it's all there. So one of the things that you can do when you don't really know how to make a pattern is to work with letters. So what I have in my email that I say is just use the letters A, B, C, D, and E. We'll just say 5 different beads, and just jot them down in random random collection. So in this handout I have ABA, ACA, BCDCB. So they're symmetrical letter patterns, I call them. And you can just lay them out that way. You can just kind of create these little letter patterns. And if you start there, your brain isn't thinking about beads and your brain isn't thinking about color and all that. It's just sort of free-forming, just playing. So I'm going to just show you, and then once you get those symmetrical letter patterns down, you have just a little taste of some of them, then you assign beads to those letters. And once you do that, you can just kind of play and see which of those combinations you like, and then use those combinations in the piece that you're going to make. So I'm just going to leave that up there for just another minute, and then I'm going to get my little guide together. And I have 5 beads out with plus a couple of extra, and I'll show you what I'm going to be working on. So I'm going to take that away. Here's my little A, B, C, D, E. And I just put them in different sizes. One of the things that I do when I'm looking for a colorway is I just kind of get a sense of the tone that I want, and then I grab beads and I see what I like. So there's my A. It's like a bronze little check glass rondelle. There's my B. It's kind of a bone kind of color, again, check rondelle. These are some carnelians. And I knew the first bead I picked was the carnelian, and then I knew I wanted something kind of earthy to go along with all that. And then I have, this is another check round, a little Picasso finish. And then I love these, another check, kind of a cathedral bead with that turquoise. So those are my 5 beads. And I'm going to make up some patterns. The other thing I have is I have some, I'm going to show you how to create that woven loop with this carnelian drop. Actually, that's the bead I started with first, and then some mother of pearl. So I have some graduated mother of pearls that I'm going to just throw in there. And I'm making it up right in front of you, so I have no idea what I'm doing. I didn't plan it out yet. And then the other thing too I have, I'm going to pull them over, are some little bronze seed beads. And so I've got those there. So we'll start. I mean, these are going to be my spacers. So I'm going to use, this is going to be probably a little bit more delicate, and I'm going to use these in between my patterning as I go. So if I were going to, I'm going to leave that up at the top just so I have a guide. A, B, C, D, E. And so if I wanted to do an ABA pattern, I would have an A, B, A. That would be my simple pattern. And if I wanted to do an ACA, so I think you're seeing what I'm doing. If I wanted to do an ACE, CA, there's my other pattern. So I can play with, I actually really like that. I can play with these patterns and see what I like. I could actually even do another pattern where I have that bead in my center and start mixing them up. So this is the way that I get to start, and then I can change things out and see what I like as I go. But it's a way to just turn the brain off a little bit and get your creativity flowing. So hopefully that's helpful. I'm going to just leave these over there because I kind of like those, and I'm probably going to put them on. So I just want to show you one more thing before I start. And this is from, hopefully I can show you all of it. So this is from my Get Started Beading book. And usually when I'm patterning, I start with a basic pattern. So that might be my ABA pattern over here. Let's see if you can see it. And then I call that an inverse. So maybe I flip them around. So maybe it's BAB. Then I build on one of the patterns that I like. So there's my AB and my BA, and I put something in the middle. And then I keep building on it. So I generally keep that ABA pattern that I had, and then I stick things in the middle. I usually put the good stuff in the middle, I call it, and then I build on it, I mirror image up the other side. So probably today in our class, I'm going to get down to the good stuff. I'll show you that woven loop center, and then I'm not sure I'll have time on camera to finish it, but hopefully I will. And I'm going to show you this necklace. I'll take it off, the one that I was wearing, and just show you the patterning in this. This is more of a repetitive pattern rather than a pattern that's building on itself. but I have a moonstone and sandalwood pattern right there. And then I have these little silver beads that are my basically separating my pattern. So there's my moonstone pattern with sandalwood. Then I have this little separator with citrine and a quartz and a citrine. That's another little ABA pattern. And then I repeated my motif with the moonstone, and then I had this other pattern here. So I basically have three patterns. I have this one with the emetrine here, I have my moonstone pattern, and I have my simple quartz. And I just used these moonstone patterns to kind of separate out when I did an ABA pattern, and then when I did my bigger pattern that was a little bit more complicated, or had different kind of beads. So these moonstone segments or sections just keep repeating, separating out these other motifs that I have. So I just wanted to share that with you too, about how you can use a simple, like a motif rather than just a single bead, to be more of your spacer between other patterns. So I'll show you that. Okay, I'm going to cut my wire. So I wanted actually to flip this around for you. I think I will. So when I have this really pretty coppery colored stringing wire that I'm going to use. And this is what I used to do, is I would just pull my stringing wire around my neck, find kind of where I wanted it to hit, and then I would give myself about 5 to 7 inches. Now I use that number a lot, so 5 to 7 inches. So here I go again. I bring it around my neck, I kind of find where I want it to hit on my body, and then I give myself 5 to 7 extra inches. Those 5 to 7 extra inches are for threading the wire through the clasp, through the crimp, folding back. It also gives me plenty of material. So if I make a mistake, I'm not ending up working with a tiny stub of wire. So that's why I give myself that extra 5 to 7 inches. So this is going to end up probably hitting me just below where my little pendant is. And another way of saying that I say that is, determine your finished length. We talked about this with the knotting and the leather. Determine your finished length, add the 5 to 7 inches. So that's, you can either do it on your body and add the extra inches, or do it by measurement. Okay, so I've got some crimps and my clasp, and I'm going to put that, just start by doing that first, is adding my clasp. And we'll go over this, and I'll do the crimping again. So if you weren't here on last Thursday, then you'll get to see that all over again. So here I go. I'm going to just thread my crimp on. These are gold crimps. They're base metal crimp that's plated gold. And then I'm going to take my clasp. I'm using this hook clasp, and I'm going to thread my wire through the clasp and jump over. I have plenty of wire, so I'm not going to make myself fight. And then I'm going to thread it back through the crimp, just like that. Now, we covered beaded loops last week, so if I wanted to, I could have put seed beads on there too and had a little decorative beaded loop. But I like the color of this wire, so I'm not going to cover it up. I'm just going to keep it. And then I'm going to get my crimping plier. Here's my little crimper. I've got my tooth and my dip. I'm going to let the crimp sit in the dip, and I'm going to use the tooth to help me slide it. Now this is pretty thick wire, so maybe I just need to do that more with my finger. I don't want to squeeze the crimp before I'm ready. And I think I like that size loop. I want to make sure, again, that my clasp moves in the loop. I don't jam the crimp down so tight that the clasp can't move, because again, this will move over time, and then it'll just kind of start sawing the wire apart right there. So you really want to make sure the clasp can move. I'm going to pop that in the crimper here. So the crimp is in that little dip. I'm going to just squeeze and give it a tug test, I always say, and that's not going anywhere. Now I can leave it like this. You can see, I don't know if you could see it when I showed it last week, but it's now somewhat cupped. It has like a little cup shape. It's totally secure, and the back is more of a smooth shape. Now if I wanted to flatten it all the way, I could. I could leave it as it is if I liked it, or I could fold it if I wanted a smaller look. But I think I'm going to leave it. I think I'm just going to leave it as is right now. I can always change my mind later. Okay, I'm going to get my crimper out of the way because it did its little job. Move my crimps. Don't need them anymore. And I need to choose a bead that will fit over both wires. So I'm going to start with my ABA pattern. I usually do more simple patterning in the back, and if you can see, my little check bead has just a perfect size hole to cover up both of those beads. So I'm going to thread that on. I'm going to thread my ABA pattern on. Oops. Oh gosh, sorry. And I'm going to bring it all down. And I'm going to thread that whole pattern. I hope it works. Yeah, does it? Oh, please go through. I think it does. Maybe I'm only going to get one in. Well, maybe I'm going to have to switch it out and pick another bead. You know what? I'm going to, I think. So let me see what I have. This is where it really does matter. I thought that I tried them, but it looks like that hole is just not quite big enough. So I'm going to see if one of my mother of pearls has. I don't know if it does. Let me try it one more time. Sometimes I'm stubborn and I can get it to fit when I don't want to. I don't want to have to walk away and go hunting for beads. Oh yeah, that worked. That was fine. Yeah, so that did work. So I'm just actually going to trim it off right here, and then I think maybe that little other bead wasn't fitting in. So now that I've got my bead over it, I'm just going to trim it with my cutter, and then I can add my other beads. That way that nice cut end is covered up in the hole of a bead. And someone made a comment last week about using crimp covers, and yes, you can use crimp covers too, but I recommend if you're going to use crimp covers, I would definitely still make sure that you put the bead, the tail through the bead. So there I am with my first ABA pattern. I'm going to pull off some of my seed beads. I did test that these went on, and hopefully they don't stump me today. So I'm going to pop one on. Sometimes I make things a lot harder for myself. There I go. Okay, there I go with my ABA. And I think I might do maybe I'll do a BAB pattern or something like that, just to switch it up. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll just use this pattern kind of walking all the way down the back of the necklace, since most people won't see it, but I'm going to try it this way. So I've got my ABA, my BAB, and then my other seed bead, and then I think I'm going to go back to ABA. Throw some of these guys out here so I can work with them. So I've got my A, B, A. I'm starting kind of simple, and that's going to be coming around the back of my necklace. Another seed bead. So my little seed bead is just giving just a definition to these segments that I'm making. There we go. And I might have wanted to put one there, but I don't think this wire would have fit through both wires through that seed bead. These are pretty thick. So now next what I think I'm going to do is do an A, to get my eyes closer, B, and I'm going to do a C and a BA. And I've got a little bit more, it's kind of growing, my little piece. And I could have switched it up or kept it going simple if I wanted to. And then I think I'm going to go back to ABA. Just kind of keep that as my spacer to lengthen, so I don't get all this decorative, all my good stuff in the back. So here I have another little segment here. And I might do this motif of ABA, ABA, BAB. I'm deciding if I want to do that. Let's keep going. I think I'll keep with this, the one with the carnelian in keeping going. And I'm going to keep my A, B, C, BA pattern. And then bring it on down. I'm going to keep looking at it. Now I always look at it and see how I like it. I'm liking that. I think I'm going to mix up this one next. And then I'm going to bring the turquoises down more to the center. So I'll go back with my motif of ABA. And actually, when I get down, I'm going to switch out, pardon my arm, for some of these. I'm going to switch out some of the A's for these mother of pearls. I thought I had some really pretty, an old broken necklace that had mother of pearls on it, so I'm going to switch out these check glass bone colored ones for this mother of pearl. Did I put my seed bead? Oh, you can see I didn't put my seed bead on. Darn it. This is what happens to me. Sometimes I get so excited about my patterning that I forget my spacer. There I go. So I'm going to just get that on and pop that guy in there. Spacer. Remember the spacer. Oops. And here I go. I'm keeping going. How am I doing? Got my ABA, my BAB, my ABA, and then I've got my sections, and my ABA is now kind of separating out these motifs. So I'm going to keep going with my ABA. I really like this. And, oh, yeah, so A. I'm keeping it simple. Sometimes with my pieces I've made them much more complicated than I'm making them now, but I'm just kind of keeping it simple. Having a pattern, but that pattern is, I'm only using 5 beads and these other beads that are just more specialty beads. But I'm working with 5 beads. You can work with as many beads as you want, but I'm keeping it this way. Actually, I'm changing my mind again. And remember, I talked about that last week. You can change your mind. You can do whatever you want to do. It's your necklace. I'm adding in that carnelian. I really like that pop of that orange, and I want to keep that running all the way through. So I'm going to pop that. Let this be my. I want to bring that orange all the way down. Let's see how we like that. Yeah, I like it. So it's getting, I'm keeping the same ideas, but I'm building on it. I'm growing it. And again, I've got my spacer and I've got my ABA. Now, oftentimes what I do is I build them off myself. So what I mean by that is when I'm making a necklace, I actually stop, I hold it up in the mirror, I see how things are sitting on my neck. I use myself rather than the fact that I'm 7 inches in or something like that to do it. I'm just much more visual that way. So I like to try it on and see how I like it. Oh, I like that. Okay, keep it going. And I might do that one again, that pattern again, and then start adding in the blue. See what happens. So I've got A, B, C, D, and then back again. And B and A. I'm just making it up, so I didn't plan this at all. I just picked the colors, so I was hoping that it would be okay. It would go all right. But the thing that I love about beading is that, you know, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna get it as far as I want, and then I'm gonna finish it. And then if I don't like it, I can take it apart. But I really like to not stop in the middle, because Right now I have no idea what this is going to look like until I'm done. I have an idea of what it's going to look like, but I don't really know what it's going to look like. So here I go. I'm getting pretty close. I'm going to just pick it up and try it around my neck and kind of see. I'm looking in the mirror. So I'm right about at my clavicle, so I think I'm going to keep going. I think I'm going to use this motif that I have here with this nice Picasso bead, and I'm going to add in the blue now. So I'm just going to switch out this Picasso because I want to get, I have a little bit more ways to go in my piece, and I don't want to use up my big combo before I get to the center. So I'm going to do my A, B, C on that, and then I'm going to pop in the turquoise. I'm switching it out, and then I'm going backwards. And then I'm going to look at it and see if I like it. Make sure I put my spacer bead, which I did not do. Oh my gosh, I wish you guys had a buzzer and you could just buzz me when I forget. Do that again. But I do like that pattern, so I'm going to keep that. Make sure I didn't forget it. Yeah, I did. And then sometimes I think I'm forgetting, and so I put another one on, and then I end up having to take it off again and take that extra one off. So that's okay. Here we go. I'm going to put the B on, and I'm going to put the last A and check my pattern. Make sure I didn't put, ooh, I'm loving this. I like it. I like that pop-up turquoise in there. Make sure I have my spacers in there. Check. And then see how I'm going down here. So let me check it again. I'm going to bring it up again to my neck. Yeah, getting there. And I might do this again. Well, let's see. I'm going to do my ABA again, since that became my spacer section. It helps me grow my necklace, and it also keeps this sort of rhythm going in the piece. Now I've made a little bit more delicate necklaces, and when I instead of using just one seed bead, I'll use 3, so it really kind of separates these segments and extends, makes it a little more delicate looking, and it also allows these sections to just stand on their own a little bit more. So that's another idea. And then I think I want to do one more. I think maybe I might do a full-on, let's try it, see what I'm going to do, because I want to be able to show you 2 different ways of doing the center of the necklace. Now I might just see about this. I'm thinking I might want to have that center bead. If this is my center section, where I want to delineate this turquoise bead from that round bead, I want to see how that looks. And just pop it a little bit. You can see I'm just added that seed bead in, and I want that to separate from the round bead because they're almost the same size, and so I want it to stand out a little bit more, so I just use that seed bead as a way to do that. And I get my, oh, I forgot my carnelian. See if that, we need to add that. Maybe I'll let this section, no, I like it. I want it. I want it. Yeah, this is called Radiant Chill, my new nail polish. I have to tell, I'm going to put the woman who is just fantastic in Santa Barbara. If you live in Santa Barbara and you need a nail person, she's just amazing. So I'll put her name, Ruth is her name, and I'll put her name in the comments because she's amazing. I love her. So there we go. Yeah, I really wanted that. And then I'm going back. Okay, so here we are. Let's see where we are. So there's my piece, and I'm going to just try it on again. Yeah, I really like that. Ooh, I really like that. That could, even if I wanted to, if I were just making a simple strung piece and I wanted it to be kind of delicate, this might even be the center of my my necklace. Oh, and I realized I had all these mother of pearl things happening, and I didn't do anything with them. I had so many choices. But let's see what we can do. Maybe we'll do my next one with a mother of pearl. Yeah, so I'll say that again. So this could be, if I were just making just a simple layering necklace, I could just have that be my center and let it be. So I would end up, if this were my middle of my necklace, I'm going to bring this around, I would have one turquoise here, and I would have my center, and I could even build this out even more if I wanted to. I could even separate some of these segments, maybe put another seed bead here to really delineate this section as my center. And then I could just go back up, and I'd have just a very simple layering necklace that I could wear with other things. And I'd have 3 turquoise standing out. But what I want to show you, I am going to use my mother of pearl for my for this next base. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to show you what happens. I'm going to do my ABA pattern, since that's been my spacing section. So there's my A, B, A, and then my spacer. It looks like I need some more. Seed beads, I love seed beads. I don't know if you know this about me, but I've been making jewelry since I was a little kid, but in my 20s, when I first started I started a line of beading. It was all seed beads, so I have this passion. I love seed bead work, even though I'm known for doing more things like leather and things like that. Seed beads I just love seed beads. So here we go. So I'm ready to do my next section. And so what I'm going to do is I want to see about, I don't want it to get so complicated that you can't follow what I'm doing. But I'm going to just say this is 1/2 of my necklace. And for now, because I'm going to show you how to create what I call a woven loop. And so I'm going to create a pendant on here that creates a little bead weaving. It uses a bead weaving technique. And so I'm going to create a pendant here. So I want to have this bronze bead, because that's been kind of my bookend for everything. And I'm going to put on my mother of pearl. And so what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to bring this up so you can see it a little bit better, is I'm going to create a pattern that is going to loop around like this and then follow itself all the way back up like that. And I'm hoping I gave myself enough wire to do all this. I might not have been generous enough with myself, but we'll see. That's again why I add more wire, so in case I change my mind about things. So here's my center, and then I'm going to create a pattern that allows this to be my pendant on my necklace. And let's see, I'm going to come down and around, and I'm going to have, let's see what I want. Let's go, we'll just do our ABA pattern and see what happens. Maybe I'll try this. It depends on how big I want this pendant to drop off, so I'm experimenting and I may change it up. And let's see. So what's going to happen, it looks like a straight line, but what I'm going to do, and I did test that this goes through. Please be nice, yes. I'm going to just put a spacer here. And find that hole. I'm going to see if I like this and if this is big enough. And what's going to happen is I'm going to create another mirror image of this coming up. So I'm going to just keep it in my straight line right now. So I'm going to do A, B. I'm going to have my carnelian as my center here, and then I'm going to go BA, and and oh gosh, I didn't even check if I could fit two. Oh, I hope I did. I hope I can. And then what I'm going to do is called a cross pass through. So I'm going to pass through this mother of pearl bead again, and I'm doing what I call it a cross pass through because this wire is going this way and this wire is going to come through and go this way, and so they actually look like a little X. If we could go through this bead, the wire would look like an X or a cross in there, so that's why I call it cross pass through. So it's straight. I'm going to go around in a circle. I'm creating that loop, and then I'm hopefully you're nice and you let me go through again. Yes. Okay, see how I did that? I'm going to do that again. So here I am in a straight line. I'm coming around the back, and I'm going from the back to the front. So the wire came through the back door, went out the front, swooped around. Now I'm going through the back door and out the front. And let me just show you, I'm going to show you what this looks like, and then I will show you what it looks like if I do a different pass through. Just make sure that that's not getting twisted in there. Let me get my fingers out of the way. So that is going to be my loop, and I might, if I were really making this for myself, I might just put another seed bead in there just to protect. So there's my, make sure I didn't, oh, you know what I did? I forgot my seed bead. That's why it's sitting a little wonky. So I'm going to fix that, but I want to show you. This is called the cross pass through, and see how it creates, if I had put my seed bead here, it would be a circle, and it would be an even circle for the most part, because, you know, hopefully these beads are even. I'm going to show you a different pass through so that you can see another way you can do this. But let me take this pattern off so I can get my seed bead on so that it actually sits right. There. And then A, B, C, B, A. Oops. And if you're asking questions, I'll definitely go back and check the comments and answer them. So here we go. We've got my, we've got our pass-through bead that I'm going to pass through. And when I created the loop, let me lay it back down so you can see the path. This is the thread path, I would call it. It loops around. You can see I go backwards, and then I loop. I'm going to thread that back through the mother of pearl there. But I want to show you what I call a parallel pass-through. And a parallel pass-through is more just a U. So this wire is coming down this way. I do a U-turn, and I go back up through the bead. And you're going to see that this creates, let me get that back, and this is going to create more of an elongated shape. And I probably would buffer this space here because I've got two, they're not that big of a bead, but they are trying to fight for the same space. So I would probably put a seed bead here and a seed bead here just to not have wire exposed. But I really want you to see, what I'm wanting you to see is the shape, that this is an elongated shape, and my necklace is going to have more of a V shape and then this teardrop shape. And this is called a parallel pass through. So the wire goes down, does a U-turn, and comes back up the bead, rather than it comes out the hole that the wire's coming out of. And I'm going to pull that wire back out. See how they're coming out of the same hole? When I am doing the cross pass through, it's the opposite hole, and that creates a round shape. And again, I would probably buffer this whole pass-through section with seed beads on either side of this section. I'm not going to take it apart to do that right now, but I want to show you. Now this is, again, I'm working with pretty thick wire, so I'm going to just try to tighten everything up. And then the last part I pull out is that. So there's my pendant. Now this, I could leave this and not have a pendant, but I think I'm going to keep it. And then I'm just going to go up and do a mirror version, and I have just enough wire. See, I didn't give myself even enough. I think because I made it a little bit longer than I had intended, but that's okay. And then I would just do the mirror image all the way back up. Now this is where yeah, so here I go. I'll just do that. Hopefully I have enough beads on my plate. So we're going to go ABA. I actually think I'm not going to have enough to finish it, but at least I can show it to you. I can always redo it for myself. And, oh no, I see, this is what I need to do, is I need to go bead by bead, because I did do this little separator. I knew that I wanted to have 2 of the bronze beads there, so I am going to have to do a seed bead there. And so when I'm doing my mirror image, it might take me, if I'm working on a very complicated design and I give myself permission to take it apart until I get this one side right. It has taken me, you know, an hour to get my side right, or even longer. I've just really worked to get this pattern exactly the way I want it. Well, once I get that pattern done, this is why I say take your time. Really get it the way you want. Take it apart if it doesn't look exactly the way that you want. Because once you get to the midpoint, all you're doing is copying what you took the time to create. So get your first side exactly the way you want it, and then, you know, you're going to breeze through. And all I do is I just go bead by bead, and I see what did I do before, and I try to be mindful, because as you can see, what I just did is I just assumed that I did my ABA pattern and I forgot that I had this extra bead. So definitely take your time and look, but you don't really have to think about the pattern anymore. You just have to be putting the beads on. So I'm going to do my spacer, and I'm going to keep going. Let me just dump these guys out. And then I'll get it close enough so that you can see the pattern. So I've got my ABC, and I did that nice little spacing, that delineation of that turquoise cathedral bead with a seed bead, so I'm going to remember to do that. Oops, I'm getting ahead of myself. Then I have the seed bead. So this is the section where I put all of my 5 beads in. Put that seed bead on. Now I have my cathedral bead, and I'm going to go back. And here I am. I've got my little Picasso, my carnelian, and my B&A. So I have to check myself, because sometimes I'm so happy that I did the pattern that I just kind of blow through the next side, and then I make mistakes. And then what I do is I bring them up and I measure and I make sure. And especially, it doesn't matter so much with check beads, because they're pretty uniform. They might be a little quirky, but for the most part. But if I'm doing mostly a gemstone bead, this is where I really test for symmetry. That I might have to trade out one of my gemstones because it might be flatter or thicker than the one I had on the opposite side. So I really try to measure it up and make sure that they're even. And here we go. Keep going. So I'm going to just go do a little bit more, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to just bring this back up so I can see. Oh yeah, I mean, I could, let's see. I'm pretty good at crimping with no wire, but I wouldn't recommend it. So that's why I suggest you give yourself at least those 5 inches. So let me bring that up. And I've got my ABA. And I might have to pull a few more beads out of my stash. Then my spacer. Thank you guys for watching my brain work and taking the time out of your day to be here with me doing this. I'm thrilled that you're here with me. So now I've got my A, B, C, and this is where I dropped the Picasso out. So that Picasso really only just lives in this motif. Oh no, he lives up here too. We just introduced him up there and then brought him back down here. So And there's my other Picasso, my other cathedral bead. And then here we go, back up. And whenever I do finish a pattern, one of my sections, I always check, because it's much better to get this far, and realize that I've made a mistake, than just keep going and, yep, that looks good. I'm gonna keep going. And then I've got my ABA. And then my spacer. And I'm pretty good at remembering that one, hopefully, now. And now I have my new pattern to watch. So I have an A. And what happens is when I turn my beads into the letters, I just, it takes, I don't know, for some reason it just frees my brain up. I don't have to think about the color and the pattern. I am looking visually at what I'm doing, but it just helps me. And hopefully it helps, it's helpful to you. I'm going to pull some more beads out. And so we've got a C, we've got a Picasso, a C, and a B, and an A. It looks like I do need to grab some more A's. Let me just check my pattern before I go away. And it's looking good. I think everything looks pretty uniform. Make sure this feels like something's, might be just that I'm not holding it up high enough, but yeah, that looks good. And let me grab some more of the bronzes out of my bag. These bronze crystals they're actually Chinese crystals. These are the Chinese crystals that I have. I love these. I love this color. It's just just matte and yummy. I really like it. And then I'm going to do my spacer. And then let's see where I am again, because I got lost. Here I am. I'm going to do ABA, and then I'm going to repeat that Picasso motif. And unfortunately, I'm going to show you what it's like when you crimp with too little wire. So you can learn from me. Don't do this. Don't do what I'm doing. Okay, so let me check myself. Yep, so AB. And again, I'm just kind of focusing on this, so if you have questions, I will definitely get back to them today. When I get back from my meeting, I will answer your questions if you have them. And if anything comes up that's a question that you want me to show, then we can I can address it in our, oh, I'm going to need another one of these, in our Tuesday tip day. Just make sure I'm doing the right thing. Yep. And this is probably going to end up being not the right length for me, because I added that extra section, but who knows? We'll just see what happens. I hope I have enough space. And I didn't really use my mother of pearls, so I probably, let me see where I am now. I don't want to get myself lost. ABA. If I were going to take this apart, I might pop a mother of pearl in somewhere along here, just so maybe I would have made this be the mother of pearl, or down here, just so it's just not this lone mother of pearl bead down here. I would have it, a hint of it, up here somewhere. That's probably what I would have done if I were doing this just in my own little space. Yep, I think I'm doing okay. And then I've got my other A, B, C. And we have a B, A. And let's see, make sure I'm checking. I really do check like I am showing you, because one of the worst things is to get get really far on your piece and then you realize you left out a bead, or you doubled up a bead or something like that. So I do take the time to look like I'm showing you. And C bead. see how we're doing. And I've got one more section. And I'm just going to see, I might end up, let's see where I am. Oh, I don't know what I was doing. Let me see where I am. I got distracted. Okay, there's one more. I was thinking ahead of what I was going to do if I ran out of wire, so my brain just was like not paying attention to what I was doing. So let's see where I am. I think I'm right here. Yeah, I'm getting pretty close to the end. So I've got just, if I really keep going, I have an inch of wire to put a crimp on. So what I could do is keep going and struggle, or I could even take off one of these motifs at the top of this one, finish it. Where's that wire? Come back. I think I'm going to do my ABA pattern. And so you can see that giving yourself that extra is really important, because I changed up my mind and ended up making it longer, and I really don't have enough wire to finish. So what I'm going to do in the comfort of my own little space is I'm going to probably cut off that crimp, take off one of these components up here, one of these sections, and then just shrink my necklace down to this size. I'm going to end my necklace here with this ABA pattern. And actually, what I need to do if I'm going to do that is take off that seed bead, because I know my wire will not double up through it. So I'm going to change it. I'm going to finish this side. I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to make sure that the slack is out. And so in order, when I've got this woven loop, this feels pretty good. I'm looking at this side. I don't see any excess wire showing. What happens when you make the woven loop and you tighten it all up, it sort of locks this side in place. So if you have extra wire floating around over here and you do your woven loop pendant, it's going to stay. So you're going to have to kind of work it out before you finish your second side. So I can see that it's pretty tight. So all I really have to worry about is just keeping the slack out of this side of my necklace. So I'm going to grab a crimp and move those seed beads out so I don't mistake one. And I'm going to slide my crimp on. I'm going to slide my second part of my hook clasp on. And I'm kind of just keeping them all somewhat snug, not over tightening. And then I'm just going to bring the wire, even this is really a short amount of wire to work with. I like to work with extra. I'm going to thread it back through the crimp, and while I go, I'm going to thread it back through that bead and come out. Get my fingers out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. There. Now since this wire is pretty thick, everything's going to sort of hold in its own place. So right now, that's holding itself right here. So I'm going to make sure, I'm going to let gravity, I showed you this on Thursday, let gravity stack the beads. I'm going to pull down on that last bead, pull down on the crimp, pull on the wire. I'm going to let gravity stack the beads. I'm going to hold it up again, a little tiny gap, pull on the bead, pull on the crimp, pull on the wire, until I really get a loop again that this can wiggle in. I want my clasps to be able to move. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. It's a little tighter. You can see there's a tiny little bit of gap right there, but once I trim that out, everything will kind of rest. So I'm going to put my crimp in the dip. I know it's hard to see. And again, I'm going to squeeze. All you do is squeeze with this crimper, and then I like to do a tug test. It's not going anywhere. And if I wanted to fold it, I could fold it. I can leave it as is. I think I'm going to. Let me grab my cutter. Again, I'm going to go in with the back of my cutter toward my piece, because that way I get in as close as possible. I'm going to wiggle it in and make sure I'm not trimming the wire that my beads are strung on. And I'm going to just nip that off. give it a little jiggle, wiggle, jiggle, and then of course they're not even, but I'm going to do some fiddling here and take these off and get my necklace the same length. So there you go. That is a very simple strung necklace. I could have just left it and had this be my simple center. You know, if I have enough beads, I could make one longer, and I could make that simple one to sit in the center, and I could wear them both together. So I might think about doing that too. So there you go. So you can see I did a little fumble, but I can always just maybe shave that crimp off and take off these extra beads and have enough to do another recrimp that side. So I hope you enjoyed watching my brain work, and got to see some of the ways that I pattern, and just have fun with it. And you know, try the ABCD process. I think it takes some of the stress of having to know what you're doing off your shoulders, because what happens too with creativity is that you may have an idea. Everybody starts with an idea, but that idea changes, and so sometimes when we have this idea that we thought hard and long about, we don't know how to let go of it. So if you can, this is just one idea of how to do that. And the other thing too, I have an article that I wrote about creativity and about choosing beads, and I call it Be a Crow. So if you know that you do want to do earth tones, open up your beads and get out your earth tone beads, and then just let your eyes softly gaze over the top. I'm going to turn you around so I can talk to you. So I was saying, I wrote an article about this, about creativity. Let me bring it down just a smidgen. And I call it Be a Crow. So what I mean by that is, when you're looking, I knew that I started with a carnelian bead, and I knew that I wanted that, and then I just started noticing what I had. And so when I'm talking about being a crow, if you've got your beads out, just let your eyes softly gaze over the top of of the beads that you have presented to yourself, and then just like a crow, whatever little shiny thing catches your eye, choose that. So it takes the mind out of it, of thinking what will go with something. Your intuitive mind and the part of yourself inside, if you just let that mind go, there's this part of yourself inside, I call it your intuition, or some other sense of yourself, your creative sense, that if you let it take the wheel, it'll guide you. So I just let myself kind of gaze over my beads. If something pops out at me, I choose it. Now, I don't have to use it, but at least it helps me start picking and not get stuck on the question, oh, does this go together? Does this go together? I end up gathering. So that's what I mean by being a crow. So let me scroll up and see if anybody had a question that I can answer. Oh, and Ruth, you had a question, so let me go see what that was. I usually don't put a clasp on until I finish. Okay, great. But I guess there's no right way or wrong way to do it. Great. So Diane, that's a really great question. I tend to bead from one side to the other. So I put my clasp on, I bead, and then I finish it on the other side. Now, if you use a beading board, or you create your pattern as you go, on a board, and then you're going to string it all together. Some people use, what are those little guys called? They're those little squinchy things that clip on. A bead stopper. So if you use bead stoppers on your one end, that's fine. So what you'll do is you'll add one half of your clasp just the way that I added my finishing end, and then you won't really need to worry about the slack on that end unless you do the woven loop. But you'll add your clasp on one side, then you'll go to the other side and add the second side of your clasp on that side. So you don't have to start with a clasp the way I did. You can just want to make sure that you're stopping your beads so they're not falling off on that other end. But yeah, you can add the clasp before like I do, or add them both at the end. So hope that helped, if that answered your question. And next week we're going to go on to another stringing. I'm going to show you another project. And I love stringing, is such a great skill, and so just like with the woven loop, I like to kind of mix it up, and I do like to use a lot of bead weaving techniques with stringing. So I think I have on my calendar next week that I'm going to show you another bead weaving technique with stringing wire, in a way that you can add structure to your pieces, or depth, kind of expand it. So It's not just one strand happening. Anyway, so sending you all love and thank you, and I will definitely check the comments for questions, and if there's anything that came up today that you want me to go over, just pop it in the comments below, and I'll answer it. And I'll see you Tuesday at 10 Pacific if you want to come for the tip class, and then next Thursday 3 p.m. Pacific, same time, different day. Okay, take care. You're very welcome. It's my great pleasure. Bye.